Aloha, everybody. Welcome back. So, we're going to talk about the Democratic Party. We always talk about the Democratic Party a lot, yes. Some people are telling me, oh, you can't do it through the Green Party, you got to do it through the Democratic Party. We've tried that. But, I'm listening, I'm going to hear you guys out. We're going to look at David Hogg. Hogg, I'm not exactly sure how you say his name. We're going to look at David here. He's going to be running against Democrats all across the nation. Let's see what he has to say.
Republicans holding the majority. And let's turn now to another story. With Republicans holding the majority in Washington, many are wondering how the Democrats will rebound in the midterms and beyond. For more on that, we're going to bring in David Hogg. He's the vice president of the Democratic National Committee and an activist for many years now. David, welcome to Scripps News.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, what is the purpose of this new initiative that you have within your group? It's called Leaders We Deserve.
And what is the purpose of your face?
How are you funding this?
So this is funded from grassroots donors around the country. The work that I do with Leaders We Deserve has been done long before I was the vice chair at the DNC. And the work that we're doing is twofold. One, we're looking to elect the most effective Democrats possible. Part of that looks like challenging Democrats that are failing to meet the moment right now. Our party has a 27% approval rating, and specifically challenging Democrats that are in safer Democratic seats that in no way, shape, or form risk us losing a majority in Congress by any means whatsoever. Our party is in a moment of crisis. Our country is in a moment of crisis right now, and we have to show people how we are actively working, not to push out older people by any means, but push out ineffective people and bring in the most effective leaders that are ready to meet this moment. And that's part of what Leaders We Deserve is here to do, along with supporting younger people that are running in our frontline districts around the country that can help make sure that we win a majority for the Democratic Party.
Who in particular?
So, first take I get, he said they're looking at safe districts, right? So he can, if they win or lose, still the other Democrat will win. As the Green Party, I'm really I want to be in every district, every state, every line. I think we can win some red state elections and whatnot. I think they should push harder in some red state areas because everybody wants universal health care, higher minimum wage, but a lot of people who are Republicans aren't going to want to work with the Democrats, right? And so we don't have that stigma as the Green Party. We're looked at as like, oh, you're this fringe stuff, whatever. We don't think about you really, but we don't have the stigma that the Democratic Party has, right? So that's one thing we have, but that's one thing I noticed from his first statement was that they're mostly going to look at safe areas.
Particular are you hoping to primary, and who are you endorsing and potentially going to give money to in order to support? Who in particular are you hoping to primary, and who are you endorsing and potentially going to give money to in order to support their efforts to run for office?
You know, right now, part of the hope here with announcing this is that many of our members that are failing to meet the moment and know they're failing to meet the moment will decide not to seek re-election so that a primary is not necessary in the first place. So that's part of what we're waiting to see right now. We don't want to have to do this, to be clear. And I can't be clear enough. This is not just something that is about.
It's kind of something you could say about the Green Party. We don't want to have to do this, but the Democrats and Republicans aren't doing anything. And I'm 45 years old. I've never ran for politics. I don't necessarily want to be a politician. That's not, like that wasn't on my checklist or to-do list, right? I do like helping people and working with people. I'm a personal trainer, coach, things like that. But a people-powered party needs the people, and I kind of recognize that. And as a coach, you ask others to step up, right? I ask kids to step up all the time. If you're the person who needs to lead, you need to lead. And at times in a society, people need to step up and lead. And some people need to step up and follow. Like Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, they weren't the main thing, but Michael Jordan wouldn't have done it without them, right? I'd prefer to be the Scottie Pippen or Dennis Rodman. I like it that way better. I just do. I would. But if I got to be the Michael Jordan, it's cool. I can do that sometimes, and it depends on what we're doing, right? I'm not gonna be the Michael Jordan when we're playing NASCAR. I don't know how to drive like that, right? But random stuff. But just like the Democrats and Republicans, they're a corporate powered party. They're always going to have power. and they're going to be able to finagle over the people. The Green Party needs people, but let's hear them out.
About age. This is about effectiveness more than anything. Unfortunately, there are people of all ages that suck. There are people of all ages that are great too. It's not something that is just about an age limit, for example. And what we're trying to do here is restore people's faith in the Democratic Party, that we're here to meet the moment and not just say, well, we need to defend democracy, but show how our party is using democracy to help revive the American dream that far too many Americans feel like is no longer existent because of astronomically high costs of housing, of education, of healthcare, and so much more. And the fact that they do not feel safe in their communities on a day-to-day basis because of instances of gun violence, like we saw just yesterday, and what we're doing to deliver safe communities that people can afford to live in.
Some of the older members of the Democratic caucus right now who have been in leadership in the past are people like Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, Jim Clyburn of South Carolina, Steny Hoyer of Maryland. Are those people that you would want to see primaried?
No. And the reason why I say that is because we need people that are there to meet this moment. And I believe that especially people like Congresswoman Pelosi, they've spent the past decade fighting back against Donald Trump and leading that charge. She also oversaw things like the passage of the first gun law in 30 years, some of the largest climate spending in American history.
So one thing I could say, especially him saying that he wants to do this in safe states. So if we do this Green Party push, if we can get people on the ballot in all the states, right? So if we're battling them in safe states, in safe areas, it doesn't matter. If we win, we win. If they win, they win. So to the people who think the Democrats and Republicans are different, you're still safe, right? I want to also challenge in red states, very, very red states. I think that the Green Party can get some, like say mayors, some city boards, things like that, city councils, whatever it is, neighborhood boards, things like that. And maybe a couple of U.S. Senate seats, or a couple maybe Congress seats here and there, or whatever, or even state Senate and state Congress, or state Senate and state House. But from what he's saying, like how people are like, oh, if you vote green, it'll hurt the Democrats. If you're in safe areas, it doesn't matter. If he's only in safe areas, then if we're challenging him, it really won't matter. If we're in non-safe areas, then it's not safe anyway. Like, the Republicans might win anyway, so if you vote for us, whatever. But if we're in red areas, then Democrats aren't going to win, and if we can win that, then great. So that gives them other options. But at least we can be on the stage, hopefully. Like, that's the whole point, is we want to get our word out, our voice out, and the people's voice out. Like, explain why universal health care is better and why it would have been nice to have it during COVID. But I digress. I'm going to let him keep talking because I'm going to cover this from a couple other angles, as I like to do.
In human history of any country in the world, and what we need in Congress isn't just 435 gun law in 30 years, some of the largest climate spending in American history and human history of any country in the world. And what we need in Congress isn't just 435 25-year-olds by any means. That's not what I'm advocating for. What we need is a diverse coalition of ages of all people who are eligible to serve, and we need people there like Clyburn, like Pelosi, like Steny, that are ready to mentor that next generation. Because frankly, what concerns me is there are a lot of our members that end up unfortunately passing away in office. With them goes that institutional knowledge. We need older mentors there to show our young people how to work through the system, and younger people there with new ideas that may not always agree, frankly, but ultimately are working towards the same goal of getting Democrats elected and making sure that we're improving lives of the American people. So those are not people that I would say that we need to challenge here. What we need to be doing is looking to elect people specifically like Senator Van Hollen, who are meeting this moment and not just saying, well, we don't have power, we can't do anything, but putting action behind his words, going to El Salvador to meet with the man that was abducted by Donald Trump and his administration as an admission of their own accident, like they talked about. We need people that are there to fight and meet this moment and show that Democrats aren't just saying a bunch of talking points or just waiting for midterms to take action against Donald Trump.
I want to ask you, though, do you risk helping Republicans more than your fellow Democrats with this kind of effort? I mean, just to give you an example of some of the discourse that has been percolating, especially online since you made this announcement, a top Trump campaign official in 2020, Tim Murdaugh, tweeted earlier today that you're the best thing that's ever happened to the Republican Party.
Oh, wow.
Do you think that your efforts may end up being counterproductive to the Democrats?
No, and I think part of the reason why people think that is because they aren't reading beyond the headlines. What we're doing here are in no way, shape, or form is what we're doing potentially risking the House of Representatives or having a majority there, because we're only focused on Democrats that are in safe Democratic seats where essentially no matter what happens, it's almost certainly going to be a Democrat that is elected there because it's such a blue seat. What I am concerned about is if we continue the current status quo that we're on, because I hear all the time across DC, things are not going great. We need dramatic change. We need better messaging. Here's the deal, though. We can have the best script in the world, but if you have terrible actors, it doesn't matter how good that script is. And a lot of people, clearly by the polling, know they feel like the Democratic Party is not meeting this moment. And the only way we're going to change that is by electing leaders who are there to fight for them, that are on the front lines a lot of the time of so many of these issues. So, for example, right now in Congress, if we had the same number of 25 to 30-year-olds elected in Congress that there are proportionally in the general population, we'd have over 40 members of Congress under the age of 30. Right now, we have one. That is a huge problem for the future of our party, because we know people like Lyndon Baines Johnson, people like FDR, people like even Joe Biden were all under 30 when they were first elected. And I believe a major reason why they became as effective as they did as presidents was because they were so young when they started. And it turns out when you start young, you know how to get things done. But unfortunately, right now, it is so much harder for our young people.
See, there's a red flag to me.
And we need to make sure.
There's a red flag to me when you start young. Okay, it's cool to start young, but to stay in and become a career politician, I don't like that. Like Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, I'm sure there's many on the right also. But yeah, those whole career politicians, we don't want that. Come in, serve a couple terms, go do your regular job or whatever your regular life is, and then in 10, 20 years, if you want, come back, do another term or two maybe. But career politicians, you kind of lose the reality of life when you're just always in Congress and everybody's like sucking up to you and you're sucking up to everybody. It's like, it's not real people stuff. Nancy Pelosi doesn't understand us anymore.
Now, it is so much harder for our young people to get elected, and we need to make sure that we are giving them the space to get elected here, and our older members aren't just sticking around forever until they end up passing away in office, frankly, because that's not good for our party either. But we need to make sure that we win a majority for Democrats, and that is a major emphasis of what we're focused on here, and that's what we're here to do.
The well-known Democratic strategist James Carville said in response to this announcement of this plan that you have to primary Democrats, he said that the DNC should sue you and called you, quote, a contemptible little twerp. What is your reaction to that?
Big words, twerp.
Try it. That is my reaction. I would also say James Carville has not won an election since before I was born. I think it's time to have new leaders in our party that are ready to meet this moment, because a lot of the people that are most critical of this plan are the same ones that had $2 billion to win an election and still lost. So I think the experts can save it, because it's time for some new ideas.
What is a winning message, do you think, right now for Democrats for the midterms, which will be next year and beyond? Because it's Washington. We're always looking ahead at presidential campaign cycles. So for 2028, too, what should Democrats be running on in the next few years?
I think, in my view, look, every district is different, obviously. The way that somebody runs in rural Maine is going to be very different from the way that somebody runs in, urban Los Angeles. And that's okay, right? Our party has a diverse message because we are a diverse party. We are not a cult. It's going to always be harder for us to have a very united message in comparison to the other side if we don't have a strong man at the top that's...
Both parties are kind of a cult when you're in the duopoly and you act like they're so much different than the other one. They're not. They're really not. They're for the corporations. They're not for the people. They've been around long time and could have done all kinds of stuff for us. Barack Obama, again, had a supermajority. Could have done so much for us. Did nothing. Hurt us. Fined us for not being able to afford health care. I know I say that all the time, but he did. I used to pay a fine because I couldn't afford health care when Barack Obama was the president. At least, I think 3 or 4 out of his 8 years, I had to pay a fine. I didn't pay every year because I could afford health insurance a couple of years, but there was a few that I couldn't, and I paid a fine. Like, literally, paid a fine.
Saying you have to be in line with this or else you're
didn't have health
excommunicated. Nobody wants that in our party, and I think that's part of what makes us strong. Our message, though, in my view, across the board, no matter what the district is, needs to be, what issues are we focusing on that affects everybody, of every single race, of every single gender, of every single age? And what I mean by that in particular is the fact that the American people, especially our young people, but people of all age, are increasingly losing faith in the American dream. They feel like they are not going to be able to afford to graduate college without a lifetime sentence of debt. They are having to make impossible decisions.
Well, the American dream has been long gone. Like, people weren't even buying, like 2008, I guess, the housing crisis, maybe that's when people totally stopped buying houses. But I turned 21 in 2000. And I've never in my life thought I was going to buy a house. Like, when I was young, like as a kid and stuff. But once I started working and started getting paychecks and the price of houses and the price of college and everything, I never once thought as an adult that I was going to be able to afford a house. And I still can't afford a house. So, I mean, yeah, the American dream has been long gone. And the Democratic Party has had a lot of power since then. It hasn't done anything since then, and they had power before that. Remember, Bill Clinton is the one who signed NAFTA into law. They took our jobs.
Like my family had to make when my father was on his deathbed in the final stages of early onset Parkinson's, where we had to figure out how long we could afford to keep him alive because his end of life care was $19,000 a month. Families across this country every single day are having to make impossible decisions they should never have to make in the wealthiest country in the world. And the message that we need to be focused on is...
So if the Green Party was in power, you'd have universal health care within day, week, month, something. I don't know how long the logistics would totally take, but I'm pretty sure that would be the number one priority of any Green Party president. But if it wasn't the number one, it would be in the top three.
Is what are we doing to make it more possible for the American people to achieve the American dream that far too many feel like is out of reach for them? And in addition to that, there are two other messages I would say. One is, what are we doing to ensure that we're keeping people safe in their communities, to combat crime, to combat gun violence especially? And what are we doing to ensure that we're creating a reformed campaign finance system so that the special interests that have destroyed so many elements of the American dream, that have driven up housing costs.
Well, see, the Green Party's for campaign finance reform, right? The Democrats will talk about it, but they're not going to do nothing about it. They make a lot of money. Like he said, Kamala Harris brought in $2 billion in, what was it, 3, 4, 5 months, something like that? I don't even think it was 5 months that she ran for president. Brought in $2 billion. That's a lot of money in just a couple months. So they don't want campaign finance reform. The Green Party does, though. That would help us out a lot. It wouldn't help the Democratic Party out at all. Because if they did that, then there would be third and fourth parties. But they don't want that.
Driven up the cost of education and so much more, do not have power, because the only representation that we should have in Congress is the people's interest, not special interests. I think those are the messages that we really need to focus on, that everybody can get behind. The representation that we should have in Congress is the people's interest, not special. That have driven up housing costs, that have driven up the cost of education and so much more, do not have power, because the only representation that we should have in Congress is the people's interest, not special interests. I think those are the messages that we really need to focus on, that everybody can get behind.
I want to just ask you a final question about what happened yesterday, because you have kind of risen to national prominence for your gun violence prevention efforts. There was this on-campus shooting yesterday at Florida State University in Tallahassee, and President Trump reacted to it, saying that it was horrible, and things like this take place. What is your reaction to what he said yesterday about that mass shooting?
You know, he said he talks a lot about the importance of that he has a responsibility to protect the Second Amendment. He also has a responsibility to protect the American people from harm. And he is failing to do that when he says this is just something that happens. This is not just something that happens. Look at other countries around the world, even the ones like Switzerland that have many firearms. They have a very strong system of regulation around those firearms. That is the reason they don't have school shootings on a daily basis. We need to make sure that in this country, that if you want to own a firearm, you're legally required, that being responsible with it is not just a voluntary thing, it is a legally required thing. And what do I mean by that? In Florida, we do not have a law that specifically requires parents to securely store their firearms to ensure that people are not able to access them who should not be able to. As we've come to find out from this shooting, this firearm came from a member of law enforcement's household and was used to commit the shooting. We need to make sure that we're holding parents accountable if they are not responsibly storing their firearms, and have a multitude of answers here to address gun violence. And what do I mean by that? We can't just focus on how somebody gets a gun. That is obviously very important. We need to focus on why do they feel the need to pick up a gun and kill somebody else in the first place. And Democrats and Republicans were always butting heads on this, obviously. But we have made progress on it. After Uvalde, a bipartisan group of members of Congress came together and passed the first federal gun law in 30 years. And in the time since, we've seen double-digit reductions in gun homicide. That is remarkable. It is nowhere near enough because we need to have a 100% eradication of gun violence and gun deaths in this country. But we have made progress in a bipartisan way. And what I would encourage legislators in Florida and in Congress to do is to figure out how we can work across the aisle, acknowledging our disagreements, but acknowledging the fundamental agreement that we all do have, that we need to do something about this crisis in this country other than just debating it.
David Hogg, Vice Chair of the Democratic National Committee, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and from the horse's mouth, David Hogg himself, to Chris Cillizza. Chris Cillizza is a Democratic, right-wing, center-right, whatever. He's a lot like Dem and Dem. Kyle Kalinske, the real Dem Shady, he's going to tell you a little bit different than Chris Cillizza. He's going to try to sell it to you better. But in the very end, they're both going to say the same thing. You have to vote for the Democratic Party no matter what because the Republicans are bad. But, okay, so let's see what Chris Cillizza has to say. Then we're going to go to a left-wing source after this.
David Hogg is making news. And it's not the good kind of news.
Ooh.
So David Hogg, if you don't know his name, is the 25-year-old vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. He came to prominence in a really unfortunate way. He was one of the students at Parkland High School in that school shooting where a number of his classmates were killed. He became a very high-profile advocate for gun control, and he sort of has moved from that space into the broader space, and he was elected earlier this year as vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, which is a big job. I mean, it's not the chairman, but it's a big job, particularly for someone who's 25 years old. So the New York Times
Too young.
reported on Tuesday night that Hogg, in addition to being the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee, is also the president of an organization called Leaders We Deserve. Leaders We Deserve stated goal is to go after older Democrats in solidly Democratic incumbents in solidly Democratic districts to try to beat them with younger people, and they're going to spend...
But so, Hogue, he said that they weren't just going after old people, and they weren't going after them because they were old. And he was going after safe districts because they're safe, and they're not going to lose the Republicans either way. So, just his inflection, the way he's saying it, kind of makes it sound a little more nefarious than what it might be.
It's in solidly Democratic districts to try to beat them with younger people, and they're going to spend $20 million.
And how great would this be in the Green Party if he came into the Green Party and did this in solidly blue districts, if that's what you want to do, because the Green Party, they're either going to vote for the Democrats or the Green Party. They're not going to really, like in Hawaii, if you split the vote, you're still not going to lose to a Republican. But you could do it in, say, certain red areas, but still, it'd be a much better effort and a much more people-powered thing or much more people-focused thing if he did it in the Green Party rather than the corporate Democratic Party.
On that effort, Hogg, to his credit, in an interview with the New York Times, admitted the weirdness of this. This is what he said. "This is going to anger a lot of people," Mr. Hogg said of this efforts. He predicted a, quote, smear campaign against me that would aim to, quote, destroy my reputation and try to force me to stop doing this. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a smear campaign, but I will say that if you are an elected leader of the Democratic Party, it is more than passing on that you would also be the leader of an effort to beat Democratic incumbents with millions of dollars behind it. So,
well, to him, isn't he trying to make the Democratic Party better? As a leader of the Democratic Party, isn't that what you're supposed to do? So that's what not all my followers, but a lot of my followers are telling me, oh, don't leave the Democrats, try to change the Democratic Party. And so that's what David Hogg is doing. And this guy, Chris Cillizza, and the Dem Shadys of the world, they don't want you to change the Democrat. Well, I guess Dem Shady says he wants you to, but it doesn't matter if you do or not. He's still going to tell you to vote blue no matter who. But Chris Cillizza here doesn't want you to change it. And who is the other guy? Carville. He doesn't want you to change, right? Carville asked David Hogg and left-leaning people to leave the party, the Bernie Sanders and AOC. Go form your own party, they said, right? Or he said, Carville. And if that's what the true, strong Democrats want, listen to people when they tell you who they are. They do not want people, the people-focused people in their party. They want corporate-focused people in their party that is going to walk the corporate line and do the corporate thing. They do not care about you, your health care, your minimum, your wage, your children, none of that. They don't care. They care about their stocks and things like that. But I digress.
This is, look, in a lot of ways, I don't think Hogg is wrong. In that I think there are a lot of older Democrats who are just kind of dining out on incumbency, who could, I always think robust primaries are a good thing for parties and a good thing for democracy. Okay. The problem
That's what he's saying.
If you're doing that and you're also one of the leaders of the main Democratic National Committee party,
but that makes it more powerful. You just said that you are all for robust. It makes it more robust. If you're for robust challenges and primaries, the more upper crust, the more leadership is behind it, the more robust the challenges will be. So that's what Donald Trump will do, right? He'll say something and then contradict himself right in that same instance. That's what you do when you follow the right-wing party line, and you have to lie to yourself to try to make a corporate-sounding thing sound people thing.
Sort of a problem. Those two things don't work together. The DNC,
right,
as well as the other party,
good Lord.
That's sort of a problem. Those two things don't work together. The DNC, as well as the other party, and you're also one of the leaders of the main Democratic National Committee party. Right? That's sort of a problem.
Why? No.
Those two things don't work together. The
DNC, they work together greatly.
As well as the other party committees, are aimed at helping to re-elect Democratic incumbents.
But that's what Trump did, right? He became a leader of the Republican Party and challenged it and changed it. The leaders can change it more than the non-leaders. Like, this is totally backwards what he's saying right here.
Yes, elect more Democrats generally, but their first job always is make sure you keep the people you have. I will guarantee you, having spent a lot of time in politics and political journalism, this will not go over well with Democratic incumbents. They will say, why are we spending our time, and why is this guy who's part of, allegedly on our team, why is he spending money to beat us when we should be spending money against Republicans?
But Kamala didn't even go to red states. They had the swing state, 6 or 9 state plan or something like that. A lot of Democrats don't even challenge in red states because they don't think that they can win. So why would he go himself take Democrats in the red states? I think the Green Party should. I think they should. Democrats should. You should talk to everybody. You should try to win every state. But the Democrats don't think that way. So they think that they can challenge where they already can win. That's why he's doing that.
I think that's probably a pretty potentially tough argument for Hogg to overcome. Look, he is a very unorthodox candidate to become the vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. Republicans rejoiced when this happened because they thought he was way too liberal, way too sort of out of touch with mainstream America, and would say and do things that would disrupt the Democratic Party. Well, this is one of those things. It is very hard to do two things at once. Both focus your time on beating Democratic incumbents.
So why is the Republican Party so strong now? Because Trump got in and disrupted it and changed it. Okay, you guys tell me, get in and do it with the Democratic Party. David Hogg is doing it. He's in the Democratic Party. He's trying to change it from within. You guys go follow him, link to him, keep following me, right? Don't leave me, but follow him. See what happens, right? If you want to back the Democratic part, right, but also back us, right? If we can get the Democrats and the Greens in the battle for the vote and just leave out the Republicans, that'd be a much better vote, right? Then, okay, your Democrats win or we win, and then the people win, right? But if it's you just think that we're going to split the vote, some places that it's only going to be 2 people. If we can beat out the Republican before the main vote or whatever, if we can beat them out in the primaries type of stuff, Like I think in California they have a lot of jungle primaries where anyone can run, and it doesn't matter what party you're in. And the top 2 people in the primaries get to run in the main election. I forget what you call it, but right. And so there's other states like that we could win, and we could beat out Republicans, and that we could win in some Republican areas and Democratic areas. But
and focus
you got to try
on redefining the Democratic Party so that you can beat Republicans. And I guarantee you, Democratic.
Right, and I'm not trying to redefine the Democratic Party anymore. I was in there with Barack Obama and then Bernie Sanders. That was 16 years straight that I was trying to do some stuff. They don't want us. I'm telling you, 16 years wasted of my life in the Democratic Party. As political as I am, I'm super political. Wasted all that time trying to do anything with the Democrats. If I had tried to build the Green Party from the very first day that I got political, if I'd have been doing this, now it's 16, 20, 22-ish years ago, the Green Party would be bigger. Everything would be better for everybody. You young people, don't wait. Go to the side of correctness. If you're not young and you've been doing this for a while, let's get our wits about ourselves. If you're still not young, but you haven't been doing this for a while, let me tell you, man, I've been doing this for a long time, and the Democratic Party don't want us. Just look, Barack Obama hoping change, nothing. Bernie Sanders, all those big rallies, nothing. They do not want you. They do not want universal health care minded people.
Members of Congress are not going to be happy about this. I think there will be some calls for Hogg to give up one of the 2 of those jobs, either the beat Democratic's incumbents job or the DNC job. Don't know if it'll happen. But again, I think this speaks to a broader issue. This is not just about David Hogg. This is about the Democratic Party and what they do next, right? Do they need a youth movement? Do they need to clear out their ranks of what some people would call the dead wood?
Interested.
Or do they need to say, look, we need to focus all of our time and energy not on Democrats, but on Republicans? And I don't know that you can do both of those things at the same time.
Kamala Harris brought in $2 billion in a few months. I think you can walk and chew gum. I think you can do 2 things at once. That's a lot of money. You can focus in more than one place at once.
Hogg is trying to do that. I think it's a major...
Give me $2 billion and see what happens. If you get... So much will get done. So much. Like, are you serious? So many schools will get food forests. So much we just get done around communities all over, all 50 states. $2 billion? That's a lot of money. You can't do 2 things at once?
That probably won't work. I think something's got to give in there. As always, I ask you to subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button.
Like, share, subscribe. Who's getting to that? Please do it for me. Leave a comment. And we're about to go on to Hard Lens Media. All right, from the right-wing liberal that Malcolm warned us about to Hard Lens Media, this is a true left-wing comrade here.
Okay.
And if you're subscribed to my channel, you should be subscribed to this channel, Savvy Sabs, and a few other channels. I got channels that I follow on the homepage or whatever, the YouTube. Check out all those. You should follow all those if you want to be all the way informed.
Hey, so we're seeing some infighting in the Democrats. David Hogg, I know him. March
So I
for
guess
our
it is
lives.
Hogg?
David Hogg is vowing to primary ineffective Democrats. Okay. Ineffective Democrats. So that means you're going up against what? Nancy Pelosi, Chucky Boy Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, these are some ineffective Democrats. I mean, you're
Right.
going after the
Some
top
do-nothings.
dogs. I want to know how consistent David Hogg is going to be going all hog wild against the
See y'all.
Democrats because
Very different attitude already, right? Like, what are we gonna do? Are you really gonna be hog wild? Are you really gonna get down there and get the real people that need to get out?
anytime there was somebody who wanted to go up against an incumbent, ineffective Democrat, well, we covered it in 2018. Anybody who's running as a Justice Democrat, brand new Congress, Our Revolution, DSA, all that kind of good jazz, were immediately blacklisted, shadow banned, roadblocked, smacked in the mouth, kicked in the head, removal from having ballot access, and so much more. I mean, the stories were all the same. So good luck to David Hogg. Who are you going after? Because you have to go after the top dogs. You know, you got the new DNC chair says he wants good billionaires. You know, my brain seems to be melting now after covering so much news, but I seem to recall when Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, who are now vilified for going to Trump's inauguration, and it's even Trump himself. But I remember all those guys used to be good billionaires when they donated to Democrats. It's almost as if there's hypocrisy. So shout out to Case Study QB. Follow him on all the social media because he's wrongly being censored. But David Hogg is going hog wild.
Insane or intuitive? Tonight, Democrats are fighting over one high-profile party leader's plan to primary their own. David Hogg is a Parkland survivor and now a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. He's also the head of a PAC that is putting $20 million behind an effort to replace Democratic lawmakers that Hogg sees as, quote, ineffective, asleep at the wheel members with Democrats who have the energy, passion, and vision to meet this moment with the urgency our country deserves. Now, the idea does not seem like it's going to win Hogg any popularity contests among his Democratic peers.
No, of course not. Of course not, because Democrats are a private machine and private institution. But this is probably an early setup to test the waters for a potential AOC 2028 race. You heard it. Yeah. This is one of the things I have been worried about.
If you were an effective leader and you're listening to this right now and you're a member of Congress, you have nothing to be worried about. And if this brings you anxiety, you should ask yourself why that is, because there are young people out there ready to meet this moment, and our party must do a better job to show our young people that we're here to win them back. And look.
But a lot of people are delusional. Like he was saying AOC, Chuck Schumer, and I forget the third one he said. But not AOC. Mama Bear, Pelosi, my bad. Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in the third one. But Pelosi ain't going to be sitting there like, oh, I'm worried. She thinks she's one of the effective ones. She knows she's up in there. So does Chuck Schumer, right? So it depends on where you are on the spectrum and what you think. But a lot of people have that Dunning-Kruger effect, right? They think they know more than they know. And they think they're in a better spot than they are or whatever. I mean, they're in good spots. But, you know, they think that they're doing stuff that we don't want them to do.
I know that what I'm doing here isn't going to make everybody happy, but I'm not here to make everybody happy. I am here to win.
Mandela, what is the Democratic Party vice chair doing with a PAC to take out Democrats?
I will say nobody's entitled to any position. Yeah. And you know what? Nobody, I'm just going to say nobody's entitled to any position that they're in, right? Like, and he's not going to make friends by, launching this endeavor. But the fact is, there are problems, there are challenges that we have as a party and things that.
But this is exactly what the Tea Party did, and then Donald Trump after the Tea Party did, and the Republican Party, to make the Republican Party much stronger than it was.
Do need to be addressed. The favorability of congressional Democrats is lower.
Is this the way to do it?
I'm not going to say if that's the way to do it or not.
I mean, you got to say something.
Well, that's why you're on the show.
I'm just saying, you're not in an elected position right now.
I know, but I got into elected office by primarying somebody.
Right, but here's the thing. Why is this a complete? What's not being addressed, what is not being talked about, is overall the testing of the waters. It's not being hyped about David Hogg and whatever he's going to be doing. No, this is about setting up people's hopes and desperations into thinking that there can be a way to effectively challenge Democrats, or is it the idea, the fake fight? Because this is how we see storylines getting scripted by WWE, WCW, ECW. Back in the day, everybody remembers those storylines. This is the groundwork where people are going to get hypnotized and think, oh, yes, we could change something from within. We could change the political party. We could do this. We could do that. We could change this opinion. We could do this opinion. We could fix all this. No. But CNN and MSNBC are going to be playing segments like this so that they could look like, oh, yeah, well, AOC is doing good, but here's David. Oh, we're going to vilify him. They're going to be testing the waters to see how people respond to that, because in turn, that's going to be a signal to how AOC could potentially run her 2028 race. Just throwing it out there. Got to be ready for this.
Right. That's how I got in office. So, like, I'm not.
Nobody's saying don't primary somebody. I think the question is, Democrats have a lot of problems. Is the issue really taking out their own or adding to their numbers? Is it addition or is it? I think the Democrats
would benefit. So Democrats have a lot of problems. So taking out their own, take out the ones that are the problems. Add to the numbers. Can you do that? Go for it. If you can add if there's spots where you can add, yeah, do that too. But again, Kamala didn't go into unsafe states or red states. She had like a 6 or 9 party, whatever it was, strategy.
From some new energy, quite frankly, and we
love the fact that two Democrats going at each other.
Let me just tell you something. I don't really care what Republicans love or Democrats love. My only point, I'm not a party loyalist. I'm a people loyalist, and the people right now are frightened and upset. And it used to be, oh, one party's playing chess and we're playing checkers. Right now, one party is playing checkers, and the Democrats look like they're going up against somebody playing Grand Theft Auto. They are completely out of their element, and it is frustrating from Chuck Schumer's vote. And they are institutionalists who believe in the party of.
But again, they're totally out of their element. Now is the perfect time for a third party. Green Party, DSA, PSL. Come on.
Yesteryear, the goodness of the party of yesteryear, which is black folks I ain't never believed in. So I do think there are members who die in their seats. They do need to tee up a younger generation of people. And I think a lot of the lack of support that Democrats are getting across the board right now is because a lot of people do not see them pushing back and fighting back against a rising authoritarian government. And if David Hogg wants to go after and do that, I applaud him. Like you said, nobody is entitled to
my question is, how are you going to add to the numbers? Because at the end of the day, you have to add.
You do.
Politics is not.
Well, it's not necessarily just adding, because like when the forced the vote happened, right, or it didn't happen in 2020, if we had more effective Democrats in office, they would have forced the vote to get Nancy Pelosi to be the Speaker of the House. Then we would have got a vote on universal health care. Then we would have known who wanted universal health care and not. And then we could have voted accordingly in 2022 and 2024. But they didn't do that. So you didn't necessarily need more numbers. You just needed more progressive people, or more people who actually cared about the things that the Democrats say they cared about, like universal health care at times. It depends on when we're talking about. But yeah, so you don't necessarily have to have more numbers. You need stronger people, and more numbers help. But even if you have more numbers, if you have more numbers of Chuck Schumer's, Nancy Pelosi's, what's the guy out of the Kristen Sinema and the other guy from Kentucky or whatever. If you have them kind of Democrats, they don't do nothing for you anyway. So you got a whole bunch of numbers of Kristen Sinemas. There you go. What does that do for anybody? Nothing.
The biggest number we need to add is the number of people who are voting for us. And if we can inspire confidence in the voting public, if people are showing up excited to vote for Democrats, not just to vote against Donald Trump, I think we're in a much better place.
Where does that happen?
No. What this is the early playthrough about how people need to trust the Democrats. That's what this is all being set up here. And David, whether he's getting the marching orders or not, or he's doing it of his own volition, this is how the media responds, or how the Democrats and the media do respond to a challenge. Notice, yesterday's show, they were praising AOC. Yesterday's show, they were praising Bernie. They were saying they're the new faces. In theory, one can make an argument that David is doing his own version of that, but it's not been given the blessing by the party leadership.
Wheels. I can't believe the Democrat Party elected this young man to be as a vice chair, because anybody who says we're going to fight each other, we're going to eat our own.
Well, Donald Trump just purged everybody and took over it.
Again, that is how the Republican Party became this strong. The Tea Party and Donald Trump, them fighting themselves and getting rid of the weak, getting rid of the chaff, or whatever they call that, right? Like, are you so goofy? But I think this guy's a Republican, so yeah, he might be saying the opposite thing that's good for the Democrats or the left, right? Like, steel sharpens steel or whatnot, right? You know, you need to not fight each other, but at least push each other.
Take over the party. So
Mandela, I will say, when on our side, when we were experimenting with some of this infighting, it didn't bode very well for us when you look at some of the elections that we lost. So I would caution.
There was a lot of bad midterms.
So I would caution Democrats, but to your point, I mean, it certainly is good news for Republicans. But something that
he's saying that it didn't work for the Republicans. Yes, it did. You guys got a lot of seats, Donald Trump, and you got a lot of America. What?
Tiffany said, I think she has a very legitimate point. If you're a younger person, and I've said this even on our side, there are a lot of politicians who are just old. I'm just being honest. They don't inspire a new generation of leaders. They don't inspire new ideas.
91 years old.
And so if the premise is like, hey, let's energize the next generation of leaders, I can see the legitimacy of that argument. But infighting with your party, dude, that's a horrible strategy.
No, it's actually a correct strategy. Too bad the Democrats will do everything they can to make sure that something like that doesn't come into existence.
That's crazy.
Now, fighting with your own party, yeah, that's how you get in real change. But any time that was ever brought up, it was always told, hey, support Nancy, support Dianne Feinstein, support Biden, support the old guard. How did the old guard work out in 2024 after November 5th? Every single one of them crapped their depends, okay? Every single one of them screwed up so horribly that the Democrat brand is dead. But this is how, again, people get tricked. Because they think that they can reform something that doesn't want to be reformed. The next new guard is ready to replace the old guard. They still want good billionaires. They still want corporate donations. They still want everybody to be subservient. But the game that's being played is that you have the quote-unquote AOC, Bernie Sanders fight the oligarchy tour. And then you have, of course, on the other side here, David putting up his own little organization trying to primary ineffective Democrats. The reason why these ineffective Democrats have been in office for so long, it's because they're following the orders. That's why they're there. The strategy to replace ineffective Democrats with better Democrats will never take off the ground because there's a reason why they have to be failures. To keep the system chugging along. And when the Democrats do get a majority, when they do get the supermajority, when they do get the power, what do they do? Oh, we can't do it. It's not politically expedient at this time.
Right,
Or we got too much of this. We have too much of that. We can't really address this here. We have a Senate parliamentarian. We have the magician from Atlanta. All that kind of jazz. So all this, yes, on paper, looks like a great theory. Looks like a great stratagem, removing ineffective Democrats. But this is how a narrative gets made in 2028. That's the groundwork that's being laid out. And a lot
Don't
of
be
people
sheepdogs,
are gonna be
sheep
tricked
herded.
by it. To quote my conversation with Matt Weinglass, do you have any idea how much shite we're going to get as soon as we start being critical of AOC for her presidential run? I don't know if I'll be around, but just remember, if I'm gone, avenge death.
So, that's Cat Cabello from Hardlands Media. Go like, share, subscribe to my channel, his channel too. But go subscribe to his channel. Go check his stuff out. Like, that's a left-wing channel. That's a channel that's going to tell you about the Green Party and be critical of the Democratic Party like mine. Just keep checking stuff from across the spectrum.